This is Pre-Algebra Lesson 2-8, Inequalities and their Graphs. An inequality is a mathematical sentence that contains a greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or a not equal to symbol. Something similar to this. I have written down x is greater than 3. That's an inequality. I can have a number written down. 9 is greater than 7. That's still an inequality. The solution of an inequality is any number that makes the inequality true. Now, inequalities can be graphed on a number line. The important thing to remember is that if an inequality is greater than or equal to, greater than or less than, it does not include the number, so we use an open circle. If the inequality is greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, the solution does include that number, so you use a closed circle. For example, if I said I have less than $1,000 in my pocket, you certainly wouldn't want to have to name all the possible monetary values I have in my pocket. She has $999.99. She has $999.98. It would take an awfully long time to list all the possible monetary amounts I could have in my pocket, especially since I have nothing. So it would take a long time to get to what I really have. Therefore, we use inequalities. Inequalities are easier. If you're going to graph an inequality, since I have less than $1,000 in my pocket, I cannot have $1,000. I could have $999.99, but I couldn't have 1,000. So we do not include that number. So if you have a greater than or a less than symbol, you use an open circle on a graph. If you have a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to, you use a closed circle, which means you fill it in, which means that number is also included in the solution. For example, I'm going to graph on a number line. Z is less than -2. First thing I have to do, I have to draw a number line. So I'm going to draw a number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. There we go, simple number line. It is less than -2, which means it does not include -2 as a solution. So I'll go to where -2 is, and I will make an open circle. I will not fill it in because -2 is not part of the solution. It's less than -2. So it's like -2.001, -2.1, -2.4, -3, -8. Anything that's less than -2, but it cannot equal -2. And obviously, since my variable comes first, this is a nice little trick with graphing inequalities. If your variable comes first, your inequality symbol, your arrow for your graph goes the same direction as your inequality symbol does. It's kind of nice. If your variable does not come first, you can't do that. So be very careful with that. Me personally, I prefer to draw my graphs. I like to graph. You have to graph the number on the number line. Like the -2 is on my number line. But I like to graph my graphs above the number line because they're easier to see. Right? Just easier to read, and it's definitive of whether or not you've colored in the circle or not colored in the circle. In textbooks, they have these nifty little things. I'm going to just put a -2 right here, where they can use, they can sit here and they can go, okay, I want a circle right here. So it's like this, and then I want a graph, so I want a little number line, and I put it into this color, and then they can do things like this, okay, which makes it really easy to see, but you don't happen to probably carry lots of colored pencils with you, so it's just easier for us if you just drop it above. The number itself has to go on the graph, just like this right here. The number itself has got to be on the graph right here. Let's just get rid of that. But the number itself has to be on the graph, but I make my line be above my graph. Here we go, number 2. A is greater than or equal to -5. Again, I'm going to draw my number line. I have a tendency to do -5 unless the number is quite a bit different. Since it's greater than or equal to -5, it's a full circle. So I'm going to have a circle at -5, and I'm going to fill it in. Greater than means it's getting bigger as it goes to the right. Same direction my inequality points. As long as your variable is listed first, your graph should go the same direction as the inequality symbol. If the variable comes second, you can't do that, as you'll see in examples 3 and 4 that I have below here. And question number 3, I have 2 is greater than or equal to c. If I want to rewrite this so the variable comes first, which is highly suggestive, I'm just going to do c. Notice it was pointing at c, so I have to have it pointing at c and open at 2. So c is less than or equal to 2. 2 is greater than or equal to c. Okay, so here's my lovely little number line again. And if you graph by anything other than 1s, you have to label it so we know it. Okay, less than or equal to 2. So I have a closed circle at 2. Graph goes to the left. Notice with my original equation, it doesn't go the same direction because the variable came second. But when I rewrite it, it goes the same direction because my variable was first. So pay attention to those little details so you don't make mistakes. Number 4, negative 5 is less than or equal to g, or g is greater than or equal to negative 5. Points at negative 5, still points at negative 5. Okay? Here's mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Greater than or equal to, close circle at negative 5, and a line that goes to the right. Okay? Graphing inequalities isn't difficult. You just have to make sure that you can remember when to close your circle and when to open your circle. Now, you can write inequalities as well. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to list all the solutions. Okay? Remember what I said about the money I had in my pocket? You would be sitting here for 20 minutes to find a name on the monetary values I had in my pocket. Okay? Or how about the statement the temperature is less than 78 degrees? So that's brings it 77.9, 77.8, 77.6, 77.5, 77.4, etc., etc. All the way down to it's negative 12, negative 12.1. You'd be sitting here forever. This is where inequalities come in. Okay? Inequalities show you very quickly the solution or the solutions to a statement without having to name all the possible numbers. However, you must keep in mind that certain words mean certain things. Okay? The greater than and the less than symbols are pretty easy, and the greater than or equal to and the less than or equal to symbols are pretty easy. But the really important ones, the ones that you're going to see more often, are these at most and at least. If I have at most $5 in my pocket, that means I cannot have more than $5. No more than, which means it's a less than or equal to symbol. If I say I have at least $5 in my pocket, that means the least amount of money I can have in my pocket would be $5. It means I have no less than that, which means it's a greater than or equal to. Make sure you learn these two phrases because they are very, very important. Know which inequality symbol goes for at most and which inequality symbol goes for at least. They're very, very important. All right, so let's learn to write an inequality from the graph. Here we have a lovely graph. Right? We can see that the 4 is not colored in. So we know that it's not equal to. Because if it was equal to, it would be colored in. So the easiest way to write an inequality from the graph, always choose your variable, right variable first. It doesn't matter if it's n or x or p or q. I'm going to use n. N for the number. We know it's bigger than 4, so it's greater than 4. It's not colored in, so we don't use an equal to symbol, and that's all you have to do. If we look at the second one here, we have a colored in circle at negative 2. Which means, and I'm always going to label my variable first, n, it's going to the left, which means it's getting smaller, so it's less than. Because it's colored in, it's also equal to, so it's any number negative 2 or smaller. So n is less than or equal to negative 2. And there you have it. You can also write inequalities from words. Write an inequality from the following. Everyone in class is at most 14 years old. Use y for the age of each person. Okay? So, we're supposed to use y for the age of each person. Everyone in class, that means the age of everyone in class. That becomes y is at most. You remember at most, but that phrase at most meant, let's think about this. And she might say she had at most $5, which means that's the very top number she could have, so it's less than or equal to. So at most means less than or equal to, and 14 years old means 14 years old. So there's our inequality. Y is less than or equal to 14. Okay, translating words into mathematical sentences. And this is inequalities and their graphs. A little later on, you're going to learn how to solve inequalities using addition and subtraction and multiplication and division.